trouble. It's not my fault, all this. I also lose my friends, I lost my baby. That is looking crack, only today want to change. He wanted us, so they could give it a try, well, I to feel. I'd kill the real, take your life in a second. The table drinks coffee in my kitchen, I mentioned eating every song, I just wanted to go away. You decide to stay in the well. I want to be forgiven, I don't like this kid for money. Sorry I was scared, you're not the way it feels. Like to sleep with it for someone to come in and kill you. The final thing is that now I'm not afraid of anything. Cause they're gonna kill anyone that feels so powerful. They try by you every new skin of everything is confusing. You will be good but you will be more. You will be good but you will be more. You will be good but you will be more. Alone every day it is a praise of pleasure.
Good morning and welcome to Dynasty 365, where the film will set you free. Today we're going to start off going over Mecole Hardman Jr., a wide receiver out of Georgia that was drafted by the Chiefs, and his situational breakdown at that landing spot. We can't really talk about the Chiefs wide receiver core without mentioning Tyreek Hill. That's probably been the news of the offseason. You all know he got in trouble, and then the audio came out, and now he's indefinitely suspended from the Chiefs, so it doesn't really look like he's going to be on that team, and there's even a possibility that he's done playing in the NFL. Domestic violence is becoming more and more frowned upon in America, and the audio tape that came out was pretty chilling. If we assume that Hill is gone from the Chiefs, obviously Travis Kelce, the tight end, is the number one target there. And I don't really see his targets increasing a drastic amount. It's possible, but he's already getting a pretty good amount of targets. The wide receiver one without Tyreek Hill would be Sammy Watkins, but he can't ever seem to stay healthy. So I've talked multiple times about how the only thing I care about is production on the field. So injuries and time missed from injuries does factor into my decision-making process. His maximum number of catches in a year for the last 3 years is 40 catches. Over his 5-year career, the maximum amount he's caught is 65, which was when he was a rookie, uninjured, operating as the Bills' de facto number one wide receiver. The wide receiver 2 would be Demarcus Robinson, a third-year player who has never caught more than 22 passes in a season. He is entering his third year, so there's a chance he does improve, but he caught 21 as a rookie and then 22 in a record-setting offense, so I don't see him as much of an obstacle for Mecole Hardman. If Tyreek is gone and you factor in Demetrius Harris and Chris Conley leaving, that opens up 214 passing game targets based on last season's passing volume. If we assume that Sammy Watkins stays healthy, plays all 16 games, and gets the same target pace he was on last year before he got hurt, that would take 41 of those 214 targets away, leaving 173 new targets to be given to someone in the offense. Now, of course, Kelce will probably see more, Sammy will probably see more, but however you slice these target numbers, that is a lot of opportunities for a rookie to step into that depth chart. The Chiefs are also kind of similar to the 49ers when we were talking about Deebo Samuel and Jalen Hurd, in that there's really not an established running back there. Damian Williams played well, but I think it was 4 or 5 or 6 games, not really a huge sample size. They didn't spend very high draft capital on running backs either. 6th round, I believe, on Darwin Thompson, and then they got James Williams as an undrafted free agent. And Andy Reid historically has gone after complete 3-down running backs, which I don't think either of those two are. So I believe they're targeting a high pick on a running back next season in a much better running back class than this year. Now, Damian Williams did play well. I'm not saying the running backs aren't going to get any carries or targets, but a lot of that success was most likely a function of the passing attack opening up the running game than the other way around, given what Patrick Mahomes did last season. And speaking of Mahomes, it's only been 1 season since he was a full-time starter, and many will tell you to look out for regression when you have 1 year like that. But Patrick Mahomes is elite. Undeniably true. The most passing touchdowns in the season were by Peyton Manning at age 37 in 2013. The second most passing touchdowns in the season were 50 by Tom Brady at age 30. So those are 2 of the greatest quarterbacks of all time at age 37 and 30. and Patrick Mahomes did it in his first year starting at age 22. He has elite arm strength, elite accuracy, elite creativity, great decision-making to be able to continue to move the offense down the field, and was number 1 in quarterback rating in the NFL last season. Mahomes is such an explosive QB that the Chiefs' offense was 23rd in plays per game on offense, yet first in the NFL in yards per game, yards per drive, points per game, points per drive, and third in passing yards per game. Outside of Patrick Mahomes being the most explosive quarterback the league has ever seen, a reason for that high passing yardage per game is that the defense was pretty terrible. They were dead last in yards per drive, 5th to last in points per drive. They have switched their scheme from a 3-4 to a 4-3, which typically leads to more missed assignments in the first year, but less so at the NFL level. It still is something that does happen, though. And throughout free agency, they lost Dee Ford, gained Frank Clark, gained Alex Okafor, and Emmanuel Ogbah, so they possibly improved their pass rush and their defensive line run defense, but they did not make any significant upgrades anywhere else on their defense. I find it highly unlikely the Chiefs' defense improves enough to lead to less passing plays for the quarterback that just threw for 50 touchdowns in his first year starting. Now, if a quarterback is under pressure, that's a big reason that he can regress. The offensive line for the Chiefs last year was 5th in the league in pass protection. They were a middle-of-the-pack team in creating yards for their running back, but they were 4th in the NFL on running specifically power running plays where you pull the lineman. I do think, on a side note, that their strength in running power plays is a good sign for both Damian Williams and Darwin Thompson. Darwin Thompson is a very strong, tough little running back. I do like him, but I think James Williams has a lot more upside as a pass catcher. And in any PPR league, I'd be leaning him if Damian Williams were to go down. But after we get past the offensive line, we get to Andy Reid, who is undeniably an offensive genius and has a long track record of creating production with just about any player within his system. And those players that he gets to produce are typically underrated in the NFL draft. Kareem Hunt was one of my highest rated running backs coming out, and guess who got him? My arch rival Chiefs. He's had a pretty decent career outside of off-the-field problems. Patrick Mahomes was my highest rated quarterback, but at the time I had not been putting in the amount of work possible to figure out where and when to take Mahomes, and I also had a bias as a huge Broncos fan and refused to own any Chiefs players. If you think I like sitting up here and gushing about the Chiefs when I live in their territory and hate them more than any other football team, I don't know what to tell you. But I've stated multiple times I'm trying to remove all bias. So I'm telling you what I see, and I also have the first-hand experience of being a division rival and knowing the fear that Kareem Hunt and Patrick Mahomes instill in me. So when it comes to situation, I simply cannot think of another offensive player that landed in a better situation for first-year production, and with the history of Andy Reid showing he can develop players well long-term. Now let's talk about what Mecole Hardman brings to the Chiefs as an individual player. Hardman was my wide receiver 10 pre-draft. He has 9-inch hands, which are above the predictive analytics threshold. He is the 3rd youngest receiver in the class. He does have the 6th lowest height divided by weight metric, but he is closer to the average at 5.6% difference than Hollywood Brown, a 9% difference from Hardman. That slender frame would worry me a little if Hardman hadn't put up 17 reps at the combine at only 187 pounds. And the next lightest wide receiver to match his bench total was 18 pounds heavier. Hardman also ran in the top 4 in the 40-yard dash for wide receivers. Now let's talk about what he brings. Hardman has an elite first step, elite natural body control, has the desire and willingness to block, elite acceleration, elite change of direction, elite long speed, and some specific plays that show this would be the multiple instances where Hardman was one-on-one with a defender and while standing still, could still threaten the defensive back or defender tackler with his speed and change of direction. Now that's a very rare trait, and it is something you only see on film. Tyreek Hill, Tariq Cohen, Alvin Kamara are examples of 3 guys with that trait. And remember, he was showing this trait consistently against SEC defenders. He also shows that he is not stiff when he bends low to catch the ball barely off of the ground. And there are multiple times where he makes turns and breaks that don't seem physically possible, which are detailed more in the breakdown coming this afternoon. One of the mental traits I love most about Mecole Hardman is that when he does fuck up, he takes responsibility for it, he's frustrated, and he doesn't need the coach to tell him that he fucked up. He was used in the return game quite successfully. On offense, he was a wide receiver, and at times, he even played wildcat quarterback. That is extreme versatility in Andy Reid's offense, with Patrick Mahomes throwing the football and about 170 targets missing from the offense. Upon contact with a defender or during a tackle attempt, he has the slippery quality of Alvin Kamara. So you combine the ability to threaten the defender with speed while standing still, like Tyreek Hill, and the slippery contact balance of Alvin Kamara coming into Andy Reid's offense and Patrick Mahomes. A common negative trait about Hardman is his lack of production. Georgia was a run-first team with elite-level running backs, about 3 deep in the depth chart. He had a 5-star recruit in Terry Godwin and one of my favorite receivers, Riley Ridley, to compete with for targets, and an underrated receiving tight end in Isaac Nwada. He also had a deal with Jake Fromm, who is not good. If you don't watch the film and you think Jake Fromm is good, you need to go watch the film, learn how to watch the film, something, because it is not a question that he held his receivers back and that the scheme of the offense limited the production of the receivers. I honestly don't look at college production whatsoever. I believe it only leads to bias, and the film tells me what traits these players possess much better than any number on a sheet of paper could. So Mecole Hardman is going from a run-first team with a bad quarterback to a extremely pass-first team on the most explosive offense in the NFL with 170 targets, somewhere between 170 to 214 targets missing from last year, while they only ran the 23rd most plays per game on offense in the NFL. Let's go to another detraction of Mecole Hardman. He does have hands issues. He does drop passes. I do believe it is a fixable technique. Will it be fixed year one? I'm not sure. What I do know is there's not another realistic target to pick up all of the slack that is left by Tyreek Hill's situation than Mecole Hardman. They have a role for him. We've seen how productive that role can be. Tyreek Hill, right now, is a much better player than Mecole Hardman. Of course he is. But Tyreek Hill has most likely played his last down for the Chiefs. They just had a massive PR hit from Kareem Hunt and released him, and I find what Tyreek did equal or worse, even though there's less proof. But that audio being available nationwide is about a 99.9% probability that Tyreek Hill is not playing with the Chiefs anymore. Not a single game. Let's talk about another detraction or negative narrative about Mecole Hardman. Well, he was the 5th wide receiver taken. That means he's the 5th best wide receiver in the class. Completely disagree. We all know, or should know, the NFL draft gets it wrong all the time. I bet they rarely get the wide receivers in order correct. Yet because of recency bias, everyone is letting the NFL draft influence their perception of these players too much. So draft capital. Mecole Hardman was picked at the back end of the 2nd round. It was about 1 round away, 31 picks away from N'Keal Harry. He was drafted above J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, Paris Campbell, Andy Isabella, and DK Metcalf, and was within 5 picks of A.J. Brown. In my pre-draft rankings, I did have Mecole below these players, but he was still my wide receiver 10. Andy Reid, one of the best offensive minds of all time, said he was a wide receiver 5. When I adjust what my pre-draft ranks say about their ability to produce immediately and combine that with what the NFL draft says about their potential, and I split that right down the middle at 50%, it says Mecole Hardman is a wide receiver 7. When I say draft capital has 90% say and my pre-draft rank has 10% say, so almost all potential, he is the wide receiver 6. When I use my pre-draft rankings for immediate production at 90% and the NFL draft capital at 10%, it says he's the wide receiver 9. So that's a high amount of consistency of being within the top 10 receivers in the class from a skill right now and a potential standpoint. After I finished this analysis, I went to my potential versus immediate production tool that I used and is part of the paid content to see the variance between what I thought and the NFL draft thought. And of the receivers drafted, Mecole Hardman had the lowest variance of any receiver drafted. That means for me personally, where I think he should go and where the NFL thinks he should go lines up. I believe in his potential. The NFL believes in his potential. The guy who took Kareem Hunt and Patrick Mahomes and used them against my favorite team saw that potential. And now for a third time, I'm going to have to hate a player that I love. I hate the Chiefs. I really do. I hope this is a good indicator of how I can remove my bias when it comes to Dynasty. Now I want you to think about which landing spot that one of these other 10 wide receivers went to is better than being on the Chiefs. The Patriots, the Titans, the Ravens, the Seahawks, the Colts, the Cards, the Eagles, the 49ers, the Steelers, or the Chiefs. Which one has a better quarterback? Which one has a better offense? Which one has the most passing game targets to be distributed that are no longer on the team at a near certain level, in my estimation? I want production year one, and I want to combine that with potential. I am very low on all of the first-round running backs right now for their long-term potential. It is a very weak class of running backs. I've got Rodney Anderson and Bryce Love comfortably ahead of Jacobs or Sanders or any of them when it comes to first-year production and long-term potential. And these receivers are deep, and there are a lot of skilled players and high potential players. There just isn't any elite upside as an individual wide receiver, in my opinion. But when it comes to Dynasty, there is one player with elite upside for production year one and elite upside for production long term due to his high potential. That player is Mecole Hardman. In every single format, Mecole Hardman is the 1.01. I honestly do not think it's a debate. I believe that is reality. The only chance he is not the 1.01 is if by some miracle Tyreek Hill is still a Chief this fall. But there's too much upside, too much potential, too much current athletic skill to ignore Mecole Hardman any longer. In Superflex, PPR, tight end premium, any format, Mecole Hardman is the 1.01. So after that bombshell that I hope you consider strongly before your rookie draft, as I believe the tight ends are the strongest overall group, the wide receivers are right behind them, the quarterbacks are next, and the running backs are dead last when it comes to long-term potential. And I know running backs are going to be drafted super high, and I love it. I've talked a lot about how you should trade down and trade out. I'm highly considering trading for the 1.01 just to prove a point and select Mecole Hardman because he is the 1.01 in 2019 in any format. Now let's switch over to a little advice for how to choose a league to join, how to pick a league when you're doing it online. Because of the Dynasty format, it's typically hard to find a group of people in your personal surroundings that are going to stay committed to it long term and also not ruin or damage those relationships. And I live in a small town, so I have to join them all online. I'm sure a lot of people do. I think that's probably the number one way Dynasty leagues are created and joined. So rule 1 is if you're in a paid league and they don't use LeagueSafe, don't join that league. There is no logical reason to not use LeagueSafe other than you're trying to run a scam. Rule 2, to avoid wasting your time in a league that you eventually have to quit. If you're taking over an orphan, ask and press the commissioner on why that team left. If you're not satisfied with his answer, or it seems like he's lying, just find a different league. Wait a couple days. New leagues pop up year-round all the time on Reddit. If you do join a league and you find out you want to quit or something rubs you the wrong way and you believe it's in your best interest to leave, don't let sunk cost fallacy or the amount of time you've been in the league affect your decision. Instead of thinking about the time you've already put into this league, think about the amount of time you're going to waste in the future until another such decision will cause you to think about quitting again. Remember, there's an opportunity cost to your time. If you're spending time on that league where you're not happy with how it's going, there's another league you could at least be trying out to see if you like that one better. Just like your grandpa told you, there's plenty of fish in the sea. There's plenty of leagues being created all the time, especially now leading up to the season. This is probably the hottest time for league creation because you have time for the draft and people are excited for football instead of burnt out on the length of the season. In a commissioner, you should be looking for fairness, objectivity, and admitting fault. I believe those are 3 fundamental qualities in order to be a good commissioner of a Dynasty Fantasy Football League, as you need everyone to think they're on a level playing field. The reason we play games is because life is not fair. Games are fair, and it's an escapism and fun thing to do to test yourself. When the rules stop being fair, it stops being a game and it becomes a scam. Objectivity is being able to remove yourself from the situation and consider how the other side of the coin would feel. There are also many commissioners who can do nothing wrong. Everything they do is the greatest. There's an excuse for everything that does go wrong. Don't sink too much time in and have the sunk cost fallacy. You can do it gracefully. You can make up an excuse if you want and leave the league. They'll be better off and you'll be better off, and you won't waste more time in the future. If you do want to join a Dynasty League, but you don't know how to evaluate the commissioner or the league settings, just decide to start your own league and you be the commissioner. That will make you learn Dynasty faster as you're getting an overall understanding of the different settings and formats and platforms, and just through that research, you're going to get a better idea of the overall big picture of the Dynasty landscape. Being the commissioner will also force you to do work for the good of the league that you probably wouldn't have done otherwise. It will help you see team imbalances more, and you can pull off better trades. But you also have to have the fairness and objectivity to think of the long-term stability of the league over your desire to win one Dynasty championship. Overall, I believe being the commissioner of a league helps with the overall big picture, and if you really want to learn Dynasty fast, I would recommend that. Your happy song of the day is Money Trees by Kendrick Lamar, and as always, the link is in the episode description. And your football song of the day is Golden Dawn by D. Antwoord, a South African rap group and one of my favorites. I'd recommend checking out all of their stuff. I hope the truth about who the 1.01 is this year was hot enough to scorch your preconceived notions that you had before listening to this episode. You've been listening to Dynasty 365, where the film will set you free.
Puts me so much trouble, it's not my fault. All this, I also lose my friends, I lost my baby. That was looking crack, only today want to change. He wanted us on a cougar to try, well, I to feel. I'd skill the real, take your life in a second. The devil drinks coffee in my kitchen, I mentioned. Eating every song, I just wanted to go away. You decide to stay in the well. I want to be forgiven, I don't like this kid for money. Sorry, I was scared, you're not the way it feels. Like to sleep waiting for someone to come in and kill you. The final thing is that now we're not friends of anything. Cause they're gonna kill anyone that feels so powerful. They try by you, I read your skin up, everything is confusing. You will be good, but you will be more. You will be good, but you will be more. You will be good, but you will be more.